What's up, you absolutely wonderful Magento loving friends of mine? Joseph here with another practice test question for you. If it seems like I can't really sit still in my chair, that's because my butt got kicked really hard this morning. And no, it was not with exercise. Well, it did that too, but it was in the form of trying to come up with this practice test question. Oh, man. It took me a lot longer than normal. But as with every single type of self-learning and self-improvement, we stop at nothing until we get that right answer, until we get the solution we are looking for. And was what I had to do today, even though it kind of threw my day out of whack a little bit. That's okay. We have to get the answer figured out. We have to get the solution built. And as such, this is going to be a good one, I hope. And I am looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this. And as such, it is time for me to share my thoughts. Well, let's look at the question first, the answers, and then we're going to dissect and figure out which one is the right answer. Take a look here. You are creating a tool that accepts a shipping email entry for sending tracking notifications. Quick diversion here. We've already, this is the continuation of this same idea. So you might say it's like a bit of a free course, though, in practice test question form. So hopefully this has been enriching and building your skill set here through this process. So let's jump back in and take a look here. You are using the listens field to associate specific countries with whether or not the shipping email entry is visible. The country select UI component name is stored in the visibility source field for the sake of maintainability. What code do you use to format the listener? One thing, just for slight clarity here, the word field could probably be better translated as property. So keep that in mind. So as such, what code do we use to format this? Now, this code is a little bit long, so I tried to cram it into these three here, and I think you should be able to just see that okay here. All right, so we have these three options, and if you are to select the right one, this comes down to nothing other than familiarity with this process and you doing it yourself. So I'm trying to head this off by coming up with a sample scenario yourself. So this one is not one of those cases where we can just say, okay, let's use process of elimination, which is right, which is wrong. Thus, because ultimately, in this case, there are two that use backticks. There is one that uses the $ squiggly brace. Now, ES6 in JavaScript uses backticks a lot. So maybe that's correct, maybe that's not. This is one of those interesting and challenging answers. But let's jump over into the code and, into the Magento Dev Docs, and let's see how they say to write this type of information. So right away, you'll notice right here, and I'm guessing there's going to be a good number of you that'll get this right simply from this perspective. But again, I don't want to just stop at, okay, well, which is the exactly right syntax. I want it to be, why is this right? And how does this actually work in general? And that's what I'm going to be talking about here in this video. So we have our $ squiggly brace. And you'll notice it specifically talks about the ES6 templates, and that basically those don't work, but these are substituted out. So what happens is inside of one of these template fields, $ is basically translated as this dot provider. So if we go back to the practice test question, and again, this basically indicates this B is correct as it is, but we see our squiggly brace, and then we see $.visibility source. Now, what is the most important part of this is actually how this works. And if I could challenge you to follow along with the code that I'm writing, and I'll put a link to it up here in the description for this video. But the key point here is, how is this done? So let's jump into our code and see my demonstration of this. So we'll come back over here. This checkout page is loading up as I speak. And let's refresh that here. All right, so we have our, let me back up. The idea is, based off of the practice test question, we are looking to allow for, if it's United States or Canada, for example, then the shipping email selector is visible. If it's not, then it's hidden. So back here, the way we've built this out is, let's type in Canada to our wonderful friends up in Canada. Shout out here, folks. This pops up right here. If it's not programmer art, so forgive me a little bit for that one. If it's not, so Chile. I think that's how it's pronounced. If not, it's hidden. So what code powers this? And this is where it's really fun. So first, we had to build something out in checkout index layout handle. We did the before shipping method form. There's a couple of options here. Basically, we went through the tree, found where we wanted to insert it. What I do is I collapse all the other. Well, first I copy this into a new file. I go through, find exactly where I want to insert my UI component. Then I collapse all the other UI components in there, and then that makes it easy for me to clean those out very quickly. So as such, now we have added in our shipping email. We have to always have a component. We don't have to have a template. You could do a silent component. There have been actually a couple use cases where that would be helpful. And then in this case, I did a visibility source. That was what was talked about in the practice test question as powering this. I'm not aware of a way to make this faster, simpler, or easier. This is pretty much a direct wire to the endpoint. Now, the question, though, that's probably incredibly relevant is how did I come up with this value? This is a whole bunch of like puke all over the screen. I mean, well, it's a little more intelligent than just that. So here's what you do. This is an absolutely incredibly important key for you understanding how to do checkout customizations. So I used in Chrome Developer Tools, I used the element selector. I selected our country selector. And there is a knockout Chrome extension that you can use that is very helpful. That provides the context for this element. It's like, otherwise, it's like, how do you make the association of this element to knockout? And you normally don't. It's normally very difficult. But in this case, $data is the UI class. And you can just drop down here, and here is the name to fetch and pull out of here. That's basically as simple as it gets. Now, there's another thing that you can use is parent name. If you want to, for example, get a value from the parent, parent name is associated with every single UI component. That, of course, is a child. So parent name is the reasonable option, again, to use. But past that, literally, you can pop the name out of here. And I literally took it out and copied in here. That was part of the challenges, is that I was actually looking at the wrong element for a little while. One thing that you'll see in like some training videos, etc., is the ability to, let's see here. We'll make this just a little bit bigger. Oopsie. And I'm clicking on all the wrong stuff here, folks. All right. Require UI registry, and then get, and you can do index equals country ID. Well, here's the part that can get you into trouble with this. If you search by the index, which is basically the name of this, so I could also search for index is shipping email. That pulls up my shipping email component down here, which we can open this up and we can see, let's see here, countries. We have injected these countries in, right? So we can use this, but the problem is this index pulls the first item in the list. So if there's multiple with the same name, which is what had gotten me at the beginning when I was working on this, then you're kind of screwed. So it's much more reliable to go in through elements, knockout context, and you can get the actual name through there. So with that, we have our visibility source set on this component itself. Literally, and that's the cool thing about knockout components. They seem really complex and difficult to use. They're really not. So once you get into it and understand how these pieces fit together. So for example, in this case, shipping email is a component that is being added in here. We have the component name, we have the template, and we have the visibility source. All of these are basically values that are set on the actual component itself. It's as simple as that. Now, to make it even more clear, I created a layout processor, which implements layout processor interface, used the XML to inject this in the front end area. Very, very important. Then I drop down here, and there is better ways to do this. I'm not saying this is the best way at all. It's just disgusting, like how long this is. Completely unusable. So we have our, I just added an email, and this is normally where you'd hydrate it, maybe from the last order or something along those lines. And then I'm also hydrating the countries list in this array. So this country provider get. Now, the country provider is literally hard-coded to US and Canada. This should be normally store configuration. So as such, we can come up here and we can see that we have an email observable. Drop that in. Joseph is SwiftOtter. We have literally injected this, popped it out, and it's available here. So what is the code that powers this type of magic functionality? It's actually really, really, really simple. Again, based off of the practice test question answer, we have our visibility source, this .visibility source. So it's going to blow this thing up into that stupid long UI component path. And then it's going to say, hey, we're going to listen to the value from there. Country changed. Okay. Country changed this visible. This country is index of, and then this country. So that's basically all we have to do. Now, we're making our email and visible properties observable. And then the other code here is what we talked about a couple weeks ago, is the request modifiers to say, okay, when this order is placed, we need to add the shipping email into the extension attributes. Literally as simple as that. So there is your practice test question. And I hope you take this time, this opportunity after watching this video. I know it's a longer video than normal, but that you take this time and you dive in and say, how does this checkout work? And as you get in there, you're going to find there is a lot easier ways to do stuff. As you truly embrace knockout, life will become a lot easier. Better code, better built, more reliable, more maintainable, etc. So I hope you are inspired by this conversation here today. I know it's a longer video, but stick with it, and I hope you learned a lot.